Good evening and namaste. Namaste, Alok. Namaste. Today is the 22nd day of October 2015. We are continuing with Book 1, Canto 5, The Yoga of the Spirit's Freedom and Greatness. You know, when we enter Savitri, we must enter in gratitude and humility. And I want to say tonight how grateful I am to Alok for his wisdom and his insights. This is a long journey, and I hope we will carry it through to the end. Tonight, and each evening that we meet, I'll read something from Mother on Savitri, Mother's own words. Tonight, it's Sri Aurobindo's Gayatri mantra, written in Mother's hand. Let us meditate on the most auspicious, best form of Savitri, on the light of the Supreme, which shall illumine us with the truth. Alok, would you do the Sanskrit? Yeah, please. And then we'll begin.
There is a little background to this mantra because it was for Durai Swami Iyengar's son when they wanted his Upanayan Sanskar, which is, in common parlance, the Janeo. He refused, but he said, I'll accept only on one condition, if Sri Aurobindo gives me the Gayatri mantra. So it is for him that Sri Aurobindo gave this Gayatri mantra, Om Tat Savitur Varam Rupam Jyotihi Parasya Dhimahi Yannaha Satyena Deepayet. So it's the most auspicious form of Savitri, of the divine, because at several levels we experience the divine. And it's a beautiful way to slip into,
Yes.
Mankind has experienced the divine since the time there has been the birth of aspiration. But our experience of the divine has been through the mental layers. And so always there has been a disconnect between the experience, the reality which is beyond, and the earth where we have taken roots. And human life has swung between this that is here and that is there. Though there are glimpses that there is a state in which the two can come together. In each Upanishad there is a glimpse of Yasta Dvedo Bhayam Saha, the two which are held together. In Mundak Upanishad there is a glimpse of this is that. There is no division between the two. And the mother literally uses the same phrase several times in agenda. This is that. The human mind creates a division. But traditionally, in the bulk of spiritual literature and experience, we have this great division between this and that. So, here, Sri Aurobindo invokes the most auspicious form of Savitri, of the light of the Supreme. This most auspicious form is the supramental light, which comes down and molds us, though we can glimpse it even at the overmind level. And it's so dazzling that it's very easy for anyone to mistake it for the ultimate truth. And that's what you spoke about, the word of creation. But Sri Aurobindo obviously seeks for a yet greater beyond. And he puts it so beautifully in Savitri itself, in which the earth and God grow true and one. So they must grow true and one. So that is his quest which has led him to this point. And for this discovery, Sri Aurobindo withdraws from life as it is experienced today, because he wants to reshape it. So very often people ask this question, Sri Aurobindo withdrew from politics, withdrew from life. But he gives a yoga which is a life-embracing yoga.
Yes.
So, there are two, three images that come into my flash across. One is that, the flame, the fire, before it consumes what is thrown into it, recedes. And then it suddenly grows, blazing, and consumes everything. Or the giant wave, before it rushes onto the earth, swallowing everything, recedes into the background. Or the researcher, the scientist who must discover a new principle which would probably, light up everybody's home, recedes, withdraws into his little laboratory, discovers the principle, perfects it, and then gives it as a gift to the world. So Sri Aurobindo's withdrawal is not the withdrawal of the ascetic who escapes from life, who has done away with life. In fact, he was in touch with all the great world movements, even in his withdrawal. He did not need any more hands and feet and human eyes to act, because he had discovered by then already other means of action, other ways of influencing the world. And we know in his countless letters how much he was in touch with the world, with events in India, with events in various revolutions that were taking place, the Irish, the Russian Revolution, everything he was in touch with. And he was influencing them. And of course the Great War. So this is a different kind of withdrawal, and it's beautifully summarized in this one line. We were talking about the one-liners. His soul retired from all that he had done. Page 78. And what had he done? If you look back, Sri Aurobindo in pre-Pondicherry days, if you see just the outer life, it's amazing, inspiring. The mother spoke about it to Rishabh Chand when she had entrusted him the task of simply writing that part of Sri Aurobindo's life which is before coming to Pondicherry. And then she tells him, it is very inspiring, very fascinating. I want only that much. And then she told him, because nobody can write after 1910. It's possible. But that itself, if we see, whether we see him shining as a brilliant star in Cambridge, or actually not just speaking about, actually experimenting with a totally new form of education in Baroda state. He would come impromptu, take a lecture, and once one of the students asked him, but sir, it is not there in the book. Sri Aurobindo said, then throw the book out of the window. And much later he speaks, he says what to do. We have to use the word I. And then he gives the example of Swami Vivekananda. When someone asks Swami Vivekananda that, sir, but Shankara does not say so. So Vivekananda retorted, but I, Vivekananda, says so. That's authoritative. So he had already started a new way of education. We hardly speak about it. And the students knew, they were so fascinated, they came to his classes not because, it was information. He would not give notes or anything like that. He had also laid down the lines along which an ideal state should be governed. Auroville was born in Baroda. Auroville was born at several places. It was in his heart. So wherever Sri Aurobindo went, Auroville was there. So if you read through Sri Aurobindo's speeches written for the Maharaja, ideal industry, reforms in the state, land, public health, sanitation, everything, he has beautifully laid down the lines. So this was a considerable work, just because, many persons are not aware, or they don't recognize it, because Sri Aurobindo left it far behind, but he had already released those lines. He had not only released the lines along which India would win freedom, but along which India would rise up to its glories. He had clearly said that if India follows the way of the West, it will go down like any other civilization. It must discover its own strength. And along with these mighty actions in the outer field, studying the Indian Revolution, starting these new forms of thought in the air, he had a plethora of inner experiences. His inner life was rich with discovering the world mother in a piece of stone, if I may use the word. Walking casually on the seat of Solomon and having the experience of the infinite, vacant infinite. pranayam and discovering all that it can give. And what a pranayam, not just, few minutes for good health, 6 to 8 hours a day. Amazing concentration, amazing poetry, writings in a state of silent mind. And all this while engaged intensely in action of a most dangerous kind. He was experiencing nirvana, Vasudevam Sarvamiti. That life, anybody would be not just reasonably justified to put his name in the annals of the future and then simply go around and say, this is what I have discovered. But here, look at this line. His soul retired from all that he had done. This is renunciation. Renunciation is not renouncing ignorance to get knowledge. Anybody with a little brain should do it. Because after all, anyone with a little sensibility would realize that this cannot satisfy my sacred thirst. But renouncing the highest of spiritual experiences, and he writes this in a letter to Barin, all that we have experienced, then he takes the entire human spiritual history. All that the average Vedantin touches is only the hem of God. I do not want just to create a cult with few bhaktas dancing madly here and there, but something solid. So imagine he renounced all that. This is something which we don't know. We talk about Buddha's renunciation. Buddha renounced material life for spiritual life. Wonderful. Great. I mean, no doubt about it that very few have the courage to do it. Shubhita renounces not just material life, that was renounced long back, but the spiritual life for something else. And look at these lines. Hushed was the futile din of human toil. That's why he didn't believe in all these activist movements. He had his own understanding about them. Whether it be the Khilafat movement or revolutionary movement or the Dandi March. He had his own, vision about it. But he never encouraged his disciples to join that because they were foredoomed to failure. They were steps of the great Shakti in it, of course. But they would never bring the ultimate victory and the crown because they were limited by the consciousness which was originating it. The human consciousness. And human consciousness is a limited consciousness. And unless this changes, all would remain the same. It's amazing that sometime back in the Mother's Agenda, Mother speaks about a Burmese author who says that ultimately all great systems and ideas get limited because of the human being. And he says that human beings must change if we want to change this earth. And Mother is very happy that he has caught the real thing. So Sri Aurobindo's withdrawal is to change humanity, which is a far greater work. Hushed was the futile din of human toil. Agitated we run about here and there with flags and slogans. But does it change anything? It only adds to the confusion. Forsaken, wheeled the circle of the days. These are very powerful lines in this passage. In distance sank the crowded tramp of life. The silence was his sole companion left. And then see these lines. Impassive, he lived immune from earthly hopes. Earthly hopes can also be very dangerous. Look at the word he uses. Immune. They draw us, they distract us. They draw us into the side lanes and by lanes. Look what happened to Anil Baran. One thing Sri Aurobindo had told him, that make sure that your seat does not break. Once you take to the path of yoga, steadfastly go through it to the end. But he was so overtaken and enamored by the idea of the unity of India and Pakistan that he started a party. He thought politically he can do it. And Anil Baran Roy, he got the rooms where Sri Aurobindo used to live. And Sri Aurobindo spoke about him in very good terms, that intellectually he can really beautifully express Sri Aurobindo's thought. And yet, look what happened. How these earthly voices can distract us, carry us far away. And it can happen to great yogis. He was a great yogi, no doubt. But eventually went far and wide on the borders of Bangladesh, India, trying to unite, raising slogans. So we have to make ourselves immune. And he is immune, Ashupati, impassive. He lived immune from earthly hopes. A figure in the ineffable witness shrine, pacing the vast cathedral of his thoughts. Showing those up and down movement. It reminds me of that. Pacing with the silence.
How he walked.
Yes.
Yes.
The vast cathedral of his thoughts. Under its arches, dimmed with infinity. Thoughts which are stretching out into infinitudes. And heavenward brooding of invisible wings. Very powerful lines. A call was on him from intangible heights. This is the state of the yogi. He is not like, you can't help it. It's a call. You have to heed it. It's a command. You can't do otherwise. If you try to do otherwise, you know that it's an impossibility. A call was on him from intangible heights. Sri Aurobindo uses the word call several times. When people ask him about this yoga, he says it's a call for the yoga. And he was asked, please qualify this call. He said, well, you have it or you don't have it. And that's the end of the day. Call. You can't resist it. It grows more and more. Indifferent to the little outpost mind, he dwelt in the wideness of the eternal's reign. His being now exceeded thinkable space. Very interesting, thinkable space. In his early writings, he gives this as one of the meditations. That with the thought, imagine space. If you just imagine space through the coordinates given to us, the last star documented maybe a couple of decades back was 800 billion light years away and still moving. Now, if you just try to imagine a vast stretch of space, we'll see that beyond a point we cannot conceive. Because it's not possible. It goes to a point it cannot conceive. It can only conceive with regard to a reference point that stars are expanding. And yet, there is a state of consciousness in which the universe is within you and not you in the universe. And Sri Aurobindo speaks of it in one of his poems. I have wrapped the wide world with my wider self, and London and Tokyo my spirits seeing are. I am the bird man feeds and saves, the beast he slays. I am the life of the village and the continent. Imagine what state of consciousness. I have wrapped the wide world in my wider self. So here he is exceeded thinkable space. His boundless thought was neighbored to cosmic sight. A universal light was in his eyes. The light that lights up the sun, the stars, the moon, everything. That's the universal light. The source of all lights, the light of our intelligence, as the mother puts it. That light is now flowing through his eyes. A universal light was in his eyes. A golden influx flowed through heart and brain. A force came down into his mortal limbs. A current from eternal seas of bliss. All that is there in the records of yoga. This descent of Ananda into his body, into the cells, all this he is experiencing. He felt the invasion and the nameless joy. Aware of his occult, omnipotent source, allured by the omniscient ecstasy, a living center of the illimitable, widened to equate with the world's circumference. So the being becomes a center, but the consciousness is centered everywhere. He turned to his immense spiritual fate. And now, we read those lines which are so powerful. And if anybody wants to know what kind of aspiration we should have when we turn towards the spiritual life, leave aside Sri Aurobindo's yoga. This should be the approach. We often quote those lines in moments when the inner lamps are lit. I find these, even more powerful. It's not about meditation, it's about concentration. In Upanishad, there is a line which tries to come close to that. As an arrow shot into its mark, that's how the mind should be steady. As an arrow which enters its point, and then you will see for a moment it is quivering, but it's stuck to that goal. So even though there are vibrations in the mind, tremors, but it is fixed in the eternal. But look at these lines. Abandoned on a canvas of tone air, a picture lost in far and fading streaks, the earth nature's summits sank below his feet. Reminds us of Shiva, sitting on its bare summits, pure and lone and high. Not even aware, even Ravana comes to take the whole Kailash. And Shiva is not bothered. It's an amazing story. But Parvati, who is nature manifested sitting by his side, she has to nudge him. Lord, come down, be aware what is happening. He is unconcerned. So after much reminder, when he comes back, looks at this earth, the mountain and Ravana tremors which everybody is feeling, all that he does is just presses the great toe just a little, and it's enough to crush the demon's hands. And that is the origin of Shiv's throat. It's a beautiful throat. He prays because he just can't remove now. Just a little toe. This is the kind of might. Abandoned, the earth lay below his feet. The summit sank. Such is the vastness in which he is dwelling. It reminds also of a line in one of these scriptures, Padabhyam Prithvi, the great Purusha, and the earth, the material creation. What is it? Just his feet. Look at these lines. He has reached that state of consciousness where the earth, nature's summits sank below his feet. He climbed to meet the infinite more above. The immobile's ocean silence saw him pass. A lot of images from Indian thought come to mind, naturally. The immobile's ocean silence, the Shir Shagar, the ocean of knowledge, in which rests the great being, silent and yet governing the whole creation, because time unfolds itself and he passes beyond.
And in the great passage about Mother, all nature dumbly calls to her alone to heal with her feet the aching throb of life.
An arrow leaping through eternity, suddenly shot from the tense bow of time, a ray returning to its parent sun. Vamakhipa was a great mystic in Bangladesh during the same time as Sri Aurobindo. And someone asked him, we have heard about Sri Aurobindo doing some yoga in Pondicherry. Can you tell us about him? And he was a traditional mystic, and some of them are like Paramhans who allow all kinds of movements in nature. They don't care. They can abuse, they can kick you, and yet they are realized beings. The mothers speak about that to Devra Baba. So we can't go by external behavior because they are so free and vast in their consciousness. So the first thing he did was hurl a couple of abuses to the disciple who asked this question. He said, you idiot, fool, and many other unspeakables. You dare to take his name on your tongue? Him whom I have seen pass across through the gates of the sun, from where none returns. He had seen him. Sri Aurobindo passed through the gates of the sun. He said, you rolling in the mud and mire of nature. How dare you take Sri Aurobindo's name with your tongue? He remonstrated, reprimanded his disciple. When this matter was reported to Sri Aurobindo, Sri Aurobindo says, yes, he saw me pass, but he did not see me return. None returns from there. A ray returning to the parent sun. Opponent of the glory of escape, the black inconscient swung its dragon tail, lashing is slumberous infinite by its force. Whom is it waking? The infinite below, the shadow below. Wake up, here is our end which is near. If he can go, nothing will be left. Wake up. You know, Ravana, when he is threatened by his life by the incarnate Rama, he has tried all tricks of the trade. All his lieutenants and generals have been demolished. So Ravana doesn't know what to do. So, see what a great seer Valmiki was, and Sri Aurobindo rightly appreciates Valmiki and Vyasa as, they had foreseen something. So Ravana draws upon his own brother, elder brother, who dwells in the subconscious terrains. His name is Ahi-Ravana. The great serpent. Ahi is literally a python who can swallow all things. Ahi-Ravana. So the python force of the inconscient which can swallow. And you know who guards the gates? Another shadow. Hanuman is also portion of the Lord. Mother has spoken about it. So who is guarding the gates of this darkness? None else but Hanuman's son, his own shadow. And he actually takes Rama and Lakshmana and puts them to sleep. Such forces. So the inconscient suddenly wakes up. Our end is near. Oh infinite, dark shadow, wake up by its tail. Lashed, slumberous infinite, the sleeping infinite. Into the deep obscurities of form, death lay beneath him like a gate of sleep. So many images and legends. What a line. There is another legend. See, Sri Aurobindo's every line has a legend.
Yes.
One of the forms that death takes is the asura of unconsciousness. That's how death. What is death ultimately? It's a supreme unconsciousness. When we pass beyond, we are unconscious of this. When we are in this state, we are unconscious of that. Death is just a wall which separates. Otherwise, it's non-existent reality. It's unconsciousness which pushes us to death. So, again in the Shiva and Parvati legend, there is this asura of unconsciousness. Apsmar. He makes everything unconscious. So he comes and he knows that if Parvati, nature wakes up to its fullness, then there will be reign of that divinity on earth. So he tries to capture Parvati. And he is very powerful. And she can't do anything till she has recovered her highest status. Then Shiva comes to the rescue. What he does is, he says, I am going to not allow you in this work. So the Asura says, you can't kill me. He knows that only Sri Aurobindo can transform. He says, if there in the legend, he says, you can't kill me. He says, yes, I can't kill you, but I can contain you. So with the Narad, with his, Damru, he ties him till he falls below his feet. And Shiva puts his leg. You will see it in the Nataraj statue. You will see a demon lying below his feet. It's the asura of unconsciousness. Look at this image now. Death lay below his feet. Contained, not yet transformed, waiting for that hole below his feet. It's there as a dim possibility. Death lay beneath him like a gate of sleep. One pointed to the immaculate delight, questing for God as for a splendid prey. He mounted burning like a cone of fire. This is aspiration. This is yoga. Mounted burning like a cone of fire. Reading Savitri awakens this aspiration. That's the beauty of Savitri. Savitri doesn't teach us to do yoga. Savitri is yoga. So reading Savitri is yoga. I mean, who can't be lit with this kind of a thirst and aspiration after reading these lines? He mounted burning like a cone of fire. To a few is given that God-like rare release. Many practice yoga. Many have some glimpses, some experiences, occasional realizations here and there. But such a one-pointedness, many tried to call him. Shubindu refused. Mounted like a bun. Whatever happens, doesn't matter. When French government offered him a place in Alaska, somebody else would have said, it is grace. I will make a big ashram, sprawling with lot of money and goodies. No money for next meal.
Yeah.
And Shubindu says, I am not going to budge an inch from here. I suppose this is the consciousness that everybody who wants to come to the ashram must have. One doesn't know what is the next meal that will be there. If you go deciding everything, then it is the road to Alaska.
and to dry oneself with a wet towel.
But if it is Pondicherry ashram, then you have to be ready for, we don't know whether we will meet the next choir meal or not. That is called mounted burning like a cone of fire. One among many thousands never touched, engrossed in the external world's design. This is what traps us. One among many thousands. Again the Gita. Manushyanam sahasreno. One among many thousands is chosen to glimpse this perfection. It's rarest of the rare. Samahatma cha durlabha. And here is Shubindu saying, one among many thousands, never touched and grossed by the external world's design, is chosen by a secret witness eye and driven by a pointing hand of light. You can't choose. It's not something you can choose. It's He who chooses and then drives us on the road. This is the great assurance, the great hope. If we were to choose and decide, I have chosen for the divine, then forget about it after. But when the divine chooses, He makes sure. What He sees, why He sees, how He sees, we don't know.
And that famous line, he who chooses the
infinite has been chosen by the infinite. That's it. Here again we see is chosen by a secret witness eye and driven by a pointing hand of light across his soul's unmapped immensitudes. Lovely line, a pilgrim of the everlasting truth. Our measures cannot hold his measureless mind. It's idle to try to interpret the ways of the divine by the human mind. Very often, whenever people tried, the mother would say, about Savitri itself.
Yeah.
When, Amal Kiran goes and, mother, I think, and this and that. She used very, very strong words. Stupid! Stupid! Morons!
Moron! I won't let you change even a comma.
Then he says, then what follows next is very interesting. So he says, but mother, like from all rules of grammar or something like that he suggests. Shubindu did not complete. Shubindu did not revise these lines. So maybe if he would have revised, he would have corrected. You know what mother says? How do you know that the Lord did not intend to leave it unfinished? Imagine. How do you know that the Lord did not intend to leave it unfinished? We can't understand the mystery. No. Then he changed his inner state. With utter humility he went. And then the mother, all compassionate, gives him the permission. Not with that, pride of the intellect, because measureless, our human measures. How can we understand?
And those prophetic lines to Narad, when Narad tells him that the book of death is not finished, we shall see about that later.
And the best is that when on 4th December,
Oh,
suddenly he sees that all the symptoms have vanished and Sri Aurobindo has improved. So he says, they are all very happy. And ask him that you must be using your force, isn't it? Because till then, suddenly everything improves and he is fine. So Sri Aurobindo says, no, I am not using my force. Then he is shocked. He says, we were so happy. We realized that now he is using his force, everything will be fine. But when he said no, Nirod Baran says, we were shocked and we asked him, why not? And Sri Aurobindo says, can't explain. You won't understand.
you won't understand.
And he did understand eventually. That was a grace when he wrote that famous essay, I am here, I am here. He did give him the sight to understand what happened. I am here.
And towards the end, when Narad Baran is going out of the room, and Sri Aurobindo asks him, where are you going?
Yes.
He says to get a doctor.
Yeah,
He says, are you out of your
Are
mind,
you out of
man?
your Mothers told him, are you out of your mind? Having lived with Sri Aurobindo for so many years, you still don't know him? This is what the mother said.
Yeah.
And so when somebody distributed a leaflet that Sri Aurobindo was incapacitated and all that, she said, she really like a Kali, veritable Mahakali. She said, don't you know that he was fully conscious? He even woke up, he asked for water or juice, and what a beautiful sight, calling Nirod. And he says that, it was a special grace to me. He asked for water, took a few sips, and then he lay down and put his hands here. That was the release. So he said, don't you know? So, our measures. He has turned from the voices of the narrow realm and left the little lane of human time. This is our problem. When, how long? Mother says this is the problem of man, that maximum he can conceive of is his lifetime, which is 100 years at the most. And the moment the divine says 1,000 years, wait for 1,000 years, oh, it doesn't interest me anymore. Human time. In the hushed precincts of a vaster plan, he treads the vestibules of the unseen, or listens following a bodiless guide to a lonely cry in boundless vacancy. All the deep cosmic murmur falling still. He lives in the hush before the world was born. His soul left naked to the timeless one. So, the origin of creation. Going beyond the first syllable, first vibration, first stir, because then you can enter the unmanifest and know what lies in the secret mother's heart. Otherwise, you will know the peak of manifestation and then merge and vanish. He goes beyond the manifest divine into the unmanifest divine. Far from compulsion of created things, thought and its shadowy idols disappear. The molds of form and person are undone. The ineffable wideness knows him for its own. So the mind is the formature power. It gives form to the formless. It's the mediator divinity. And that we will see later on in this very canto.
Yes.
So he goes beyond these formature powers which gives form. The first forms are very subtle. The form of the great gods of the overmind. But they are very plastic forms. The same form can appear in several different ways to different seekers. Then as the forms come nearer and nearer to earth nature, just before the human mind, in the higher mind, they become crystallized. That is the birthplace of religions, where forms have become fixed. Great truths have become narrow formulas or fixed formulas. Narrow is still later. Rigid dogmas, vast infinite movements in cosmic space become narrow dogmas, sectarianism. And then it comes into human mind, then it gets totally a caricature. So he has gone beyond these forms. It's one indication that beyond the supramental. Alone, forerunner of the Godward earth, among the symbols of yet unshaped things, watched by closed eyes, mute faces of the unborn. Now he has entered the unmanifest. Things that are waiting to be born. Look at Mother's prayer. The new things that are waiting to be born. Where are they waiting? In the folds of the unmanifest.
Watched by closed eyes.
Watched by closed eyes. They are yet waiting to be born. They have to be brought out of the sleep of the superconscious. He journeys to meet the incommunicable, hearing the echo of his single steps in the eternal courts of solitude. In nameless marvel fills the motionless hours. His spirit mingles with eternity's heart and bears the silence of the infinite. Mark the word bears. The mother says this, that human beings, they are frightened with this silence. And Sri Aurobindo could give it as a gift, and so could the mother. And she tells this story that when this silence was given to someone, he ran away saying, oh my God, I have gone stupid. So you have to bear this silence of the infinite. It needs tremendous, it's a leap of faith, surrender, vastness, call it whatever we may. Otherwise we can't bear this silence. Even a few minutes are difficult. We close with this. A nameless marvel fills the motionless hours. His spirit mingles with eternity's heart and bears the silence of the infinite.